Hey everyone, Rua here. It's been a while since I put together an editorial video, as, to be frank, most of the version updates towards the end of 2020 were lackluster as far as job updates go. There just wasn't any reason to put some out. What I'm about to go into in this video is the culmination of casual brainstorming with other players in-game and through the various forums for quite some time. As you can tell from the title of the video, this will concern ideas for job updates in 2021. This is all of course theory crafting. None of what follows is what Square Enix will actually do going forward, just what I think makes sense. Alright, let's go. The first job is of course Ninja. Ninja featured as one of the game's tanks last year, and my stance since then hasn't changed. Ninja is a tank, one which excels when security and controlling the speed of a dangerous battle are paramount. It works especially well alongside DPS, which are likewise at the subtle blow cap or even beyond it. I acknowledged back then that it could use a substantial update to help it out in its tanking role, so here's what I think it needs. If geared for, properly supported, and if the target doesn't have native defenses which reduce their effectiveness, a ninja's hybrid weapon skills can hit for bonkers amounts of damage. Problems arise when hybrid weapon skills are not viable and the ninja finds themselves leaning on their physical weapon skills. Blade 10 is Ninja's best bet for sheer physical damage output and if TP overflow is happening, as it scales damage similar to Savage Blade. What lets 10 down is that its stat modifiers are low, sitting at 30%. This could be increased to 50%. Kamu could use similar treatment, but since the Nagi increases its damage as it is, I'd be careful how far that gets pushed. Blade Shun needs a complete overhaul. As it stands, Blade Shun scales attack with TP. This needs to be changed to damage scaling with TP, so it becomes something akin to Resolution. Not as strong as Resolution obviously, but certainly better than what it is right now. Blade Metsu is likely going to get adjusted when the developers get around to reworking relic weapon skills, which we know is in the pipeline, so for now I would leave it as it is. Certain ninjutsu spells need to scale their potency with ninjutsu skill. The values of Kaka and Myoshu, the worst offenders, are frankly pitiful. 10 store TP and 10 subtle blow are laughable, but they could be made much better by simply having them scale to 25 each, almost tripling their values. Why that number? Well, Myoshu's subtle blow effect needs to become subtle blow too, allowing the ninja to fully cap their own trait. It's baffling to me why Ninja, a job centered on minimizing TP feed to its target, has absolutely no subtle blow 2 beyond path being a Fudo Masamune. Other spells which need to have their potencies upped are Yeon, Asha, and Yurin. Yeon should be a mirror of Gekka, which itself is the equivalent of the Crusade spell Paladin and Runefencer use, capping at -30 enmity. Asha's attack down should increase from -10 to -25, and Yurin's inhibit TP effect needs to double from 10% to 20%. Ninja also needs a new ability, similar to one it already has, Fute. This ability would cause the next enhancing ninjutsu spell cast to become area of effect, but consume 2 tools when cast. An ability like this would finally give the job some party support that every other tank job has. The applications of this are pretty immense. You could give your group a store TP buff to complement or compensate for a Corsair being present or not, a subtle blow buff to help your DPS reach the cap, giving the ninja a much easier time by the way, or break the cap if they cannot themselves. Alternatively, you could lower the enmity gain of your entire group by giving them Yeon's effect. Ninja being able to give its entire party Migawari, preventing them from being one-shotted, would be a legitimate game changer. If all other needs are being met, then the ninja could just use this ability to cast Utsuzemi-san on their entire party, resulting in a massive enmity spike if Yonin is active. A last note on this ability, it would have a 3-minute reuse timer just like Fute to prevent its abuse, though with the Corsair resetting it, you could get really creative. Speaking of Utsuzemi and Yonin, here are the final adjustments I would make to Ninja to fully complete the job. Yonin, Ninja's tanking stance, needs to have one more effect added to it. Yonin should prevent AoE attacks or spells from clearing the ninja's Utsuzemi shadows in one shot, instead only taking 4. With so much in today's endgame using constant AoE attacks, this becomes extremely frustrating for ninjas. It's not a guarantee of safety though, as not upkeeping shadows, especially against targets which use multi-hit attacks, can still land you in trouble not even Migawari will save you from. Tying this to Yonin, unavailable from a ninja subjob, prevents its wider abuse. Utsuzemi is arguably Ninja's signature spell, so it should be the undisputed master of it. The last point is more a quality of life adjustment than anything, but it's still significant. The 3 Utsuzemi spells should be able to overwrite each other if the shadows they would provide are greater than the amount the ninja has at time of casting. Utsuzemi Ni not overriding Utsuzemi Sun when Sun only has 1 shadow left is just silly and needs changing. I'm still very fond of Ninja and have gone out of my way to prove it is a viable tank for most situations in endgame. It is not at the level of Paladin and Runefencer though, as those 2 jobs meet their niches and then go beyond that in the hands of skilled players. It could be given the means to meet this bar, and I sincerely hope it is. Beastmaster. Yes, this job guide is coming eventually. I've actually been holding off on it because we know a final patch for the job is coming. The developers stated that when it was patched last year. Beastmaster has really grown on me, and I think I've been successful in winning some over to its applications in endgame content. I'm just one of many in that ongoing effort though. Shout out to those of you that are trying. Beastmaster's final update is actually pretty straightforward, as most of it involves incorporating aspects of another DPS which also happens to be a pet job, by technicality. Before I get into that, here's something Beastmaster could get which is from its own toolkit. As it stands, Beastmaster has pets which are used for specific tasks. Generous Arthur is the trusty H&M buster and is excellent in Dynamis Divergence. Fluffy Breedo, that name always gets me, is basically a portable Geomalaise. Bouncing Bertha is famous for her cleaving ability, and Sultry Patrice is just hilarious to see hold and burn down massive crowds. Beastmaster's most recent update came with patch notes which stated, and I quote, "Rather than one size fits all pets, we've elected to bring ones with very specific strengths and weaknesses. One thing of note, our Beastmaster adjustments for this month are predicated on the belief that Beastmaster's strength should be fighting together with their pets, while leaving the door open for other adjustments at a later date." From this update, the omission of one certain pet left me feeling a little bit let down. Which one? A gnat. A gnat fits the role of enfeebling support perfectly, and if you'll excuse the pun, it'd be a real fly in the ointment and menace for most enemies it's let loose on. Being a thief sub-monk, it will be very evasive, have a high triple attack rate and dish out some beefy critical hits, all the while not feeding much TP itself. Its ready moves are generally the same as those of a regular gnat, that to say they're extremely frustrating. Insipid Nip would take 3 random attributes, but at its low charge cost means it could be used back to cripple something in a hurry. Bombalation would give Beastmaster another means of resetting target TP. It already has a pet which can do this, but the leech is not aged particularly well. Simicine Discharge is a countermeasure if the gnat ends up getting hate on a crowd, or if the tank holding everything needs a helping hand. Booming Bombalation would be the headliner though. The light damage would be an afterthought, as there are other pets better suited to AoE burning. What matters with this attack are the additional effects. Defense and Magic Defense down are just there to fill a need, as you'll find Beastmasters have a lot of abilities which inflict these 2 ailments across different monster families. This is to ensure that they can use a pet for killer instinct and still have some other utility with it. The Plague is the real draw. Beastmaster has a Plague attack from its AccuX, but this one would be twice as strong and come with a pet which could also reset target TP. The idea for this pet gnat came from the job's last update. Tandem Blow giving Beastmaster the means of hitting 70% subtle blow would make this a very good pet to bring to a group, especially if paired with a monk, ninja or dancer. The other part of Beastmaster's final update should address its damage output. The fix for this is actually really straightforward. Let's start with a pet. If the developers are insistent on a Beastmaster's pet becoming a viable source of damage, then it needs more support getting there. Pet exclusive roles will not suffice, as those cut out other DPS jobs. That's just fixing one problem but replacing it with another, and arguably bigger problem. No, the solution is to add an additional effect to Run Wild. Run Wild increases a pet's parameters but dismisses it after 5 minutes, just shy of 6 minutes when job mastered. On top of this, it should copy all active enhancing magic, Bard Song and Corsair role effects active on the Beastmaster to their pet for its duration. This mechanic already exists with the Dragoon's empathy trait doing exactly this whenever Spirit Link is used. There is absolutely no reason why Beastmaster should not have a variant of it, with the existing dismissal caveat of Run Wild acting as a balance. This would make a pet a viable source of damage for pivotal battles, but it would still require great skill from the Beastmaster to truly shine. Moving on to the Beastmaster themselves, here's the final piece of the puzzle to fully complete the job. Addressing Axe weapon skill damage without further buffing Warrior is easy, it just means copying another aspect of a pet job fixed. You give it the same weapon skill damage boost trait Dragoon got. That's it. Beastmaster should get all 6 tiers of the trait, a 21% increase. Dragoon will still have the stronger value though, since its Wyvern gives it another 10%, a trade-off for Beastmaster having more utility from its pets, I guess. A quality of life adjustment would be to make the haste effect a Beastmaster gets from their Raz pet, that's the pig, job ability haste rather than magic haste, letting it cap attack speed with a fencer build. On that note, it could get better shields with actual DPS attributes on them, or just add Beastmaster to the Blurred Shield +1 and call it a day. Puppetmaster. The developers have skirted around this job for years and have patched it here and there, but never truly addressed core issues with it. I get why, to an extent. They had to be very careful with patching Monk or they'd have made it overpowered, which it arguably currently is, but that's another question for another time. Puppetmaster could be even more overpowered if they went too far with it, really. The adjustments to hand-to-hand weapon skills aimed at Monk were also a buff to Puppetmaster, but to really fix the job, the automaton's damage output needs addressing, as there's no point over buffing the Puppetmaster. If you did that, you might as well just play Monk. The biggest problem I've encountered with Puppetmaster when bringing it to parties as a DPS is that it's just far too reliant on Overdrive, its SP ability, to make its automaton a competent DPS. Being a great DPS every 45 minutes for 3 minutes just isn't going to cut it, so there has to be another means of boosting the automaton's damage output. My proposed solution is to give Puppetmaster a new ability similar to what Beastmaster should get, an ability which copies all active buffs it has to its automaton for its duration. This ability, let's call it Overclock, will do exactly that, but set the overload threshold to a dangerous level and steadily decrease it. Overloading will cancel the ability prematurely and wipe all copied buffs. There will be 4 ways for a skilled Puppetmaster to get around this. One is to have the automaton engage prior to build maneuver duration before overclocking it. Another is to equip the automaton with the heatsink to counter the overload threshold decrease, or the condenser to prevent overloads entirely. It could also be stacked with overdrive to push damage to truly bonkers levels and completely prevent overloading. The final wave would be to just use the Kenkonken. Overclock would last 3 minutes and have a reuse timer of 5 minutes, making it an analog to a Monk's impetus. The 2-minute cooldown on Overclock would give time for Burden to ease off before it's activated again. I think this would absolutely fix automaton damage output, but would require a great deal of skill to use properly, rewarding competent play. A handful of attachments could use a do-over as well, and I would also add 2 new ones. The Dynamo line could do with increasing critical hit damage as well as critical hit rate in equal measure, buffing damage over time, but especially buffing String Shredder damage considerably. The speed loaders and inhibitors could have their effects adjusted. The speed loaders could solely grant store TP, preventing the automaton from locking up when there are weapon skills flying thick and fast. The skill chain optimization and skill chain damage effects could instead be exclusive to the inhibitors. I would reduce the reuse timer of the Valor Edge's shield bash from 3 minutes to 1 minute, reflecting the adjustment Paladin received to its own shield bash timer. The barrier modules would still increase shield block rate, but would have their second effect changed to reduce enmity loss when taking damage. Automatons don't take that much damage as it is, but you never know, it might be useful. The 2 new attachments would be one which gives the automaton subtle blow, fixing the problem of the Puppetmaster and automaton duo feeding excessive amounts of TP. The other would give it another enmity tool with foil. Mitigating damage is no problem for an automaton optimized for tanking, so this would either help it gain enmity faster or let the Puppetmaster be more aggressive with the loadout when setting up for a bruiser tank. Puppetmaster deserves some attention from the developers, and it's due an update to address its issues, but to also truly separate it from Monk. There's no point buffing the power of the Puppetmaster while neglecting its automaton, that's just not the purpose of the job. It functions as a good tank for certain settings in endgame, but with adjustments akin to these it could go even further. An automaton copying Shell, bar spells and carols, just to name 3, would help its magic evasion immensely and open up possibilities. Copying the same DPS bus the Puppetmaster is getting would also make the duo a viable option when damage is needed, along with the utility it can bring with it. Okay, that just about covers it for this video. I'll probably come up with a few more ideas by the time the next update announcement rolls around, but until then let me know what you think and what you like to see other jobs get. It's an open forum, so have at it.